No one remembered when the drum was made. Not the elders who sat beneath the Irako tree every morning. Not the women who swept the red earth before sunrise. Not even the oldest man in the village, whose eyes had clouded long before his memory ever did. What everyone agreed on was this: the drum was older than the village, and the village existed because the drum allowed it. It sat at the edge of Auburn Forest, half buried in shadow, housed in a small shrine of cracked clay and termite-eaten wood. The shrine leaned slightly to one side, as if bowing under a weight it could no longer bear. Moss crept along its base. Vines wrapped around its posts like cautious fingers. No one touched it. No one cleaned it. No one even spoke near it. Because the drum was not meant to be played by hands. It was meant to be answered. In the village of Acanal, there were many rules. Some were ordinary. Do not farm past the western stream. Do not fish on the night of the new moon. Do not whistle after sunset. But above all rules, there was one that had never changed. When the drum speaks, the village must listen. The elders said the drum did not sound like other drums. It did not call for dance. It did not announce festivals. It did not summon joy. When it spoke, it did so once, a single, low beat that traveled through the ground before it reached the ears. And when that sound came, the village was expected to fall silent. No talking, no movement, no questions. People were to remain where they were until sunrise. Why? That was a question no one asked anymore. Because those who had once asked did not remain long enough to teach others. Time has a way of dulling fear. Years passed, then decades, then generations. The drum did not speak. Children grew into adults who had never heard it. Adults became elders whose memories of the drum were secondhand stories. Stories became habits. Habits became superstition. And superstition became foolishness. The younger men laughed when the elders mentioned the rule. The drum, they scoffed. That rotten thing. The forest makes noises all the time, others said. Trees fall. Animals move. Thunder rolls. Some whispered something worse. That drum is just a way to keep us afraid. The elders argued at first. Then they pleaded. Eventually, they grew tired. Fear, after all, cannot survive without memory. It was during the festival of first fire that everything changed. The harvest had been generous that year. Yams piled high. Palm wine flowed freely. The air smelled of smoke, roasted meat, and celebration. Drums echoed across Acanal, but not that drum. These were festival drums, joyful drums, fast, bright rhythms that made feet move and hearts lift. The village danced deep into the night. Laughter drowned out the forest. And so, when the sound came, almost no one noticed at first. It was not loud. It was not sharp. It was deep. A single beat, low enough to be felt before it was heard. The ground trembled, just slightly, like the village itself had exhaled. Then silence followed. One beat. That was all. The dancers slowed. A few elders froze. But then someone laughed. Was that it? A young man called out. Is that the famous drum? Others joined in. Maybe the termites are playing music now. Quick. Everyone stop breathing. The ancestors are watching. Laughter spread like fire through dry grass. An elder tried to speak, his voice shaking. Enough, he said. The rule, but he was drowned out by drums, clapping, and mocking chants. Someone even beat a rhythm on an empty calabash, imitating the sound they imagined the old drum would make. The festival continued. The forest watched. It began quietly. A child cried out that he could not find his mother. Then another voice called for a missing brother. At first, people assumed it was the confusion of the crowd. Too much palm wine. Too many bodies moving in the dark. But then the dogs began to howl. Not bark. Howl. Low and trembling. They pulled against their tethers, eyes fixed on the forest, tails tucked tight beneath them. The air grew heavy. The drums slowed. Somewhere beyond the tree line, something moved. Not fast. Not loud. But deliberate. Mist crept in from Auburn Forest, thin at first, then thick enough to blur the outlines of huts and faces. Torches sputtered. The laughter died. That was when the elders spoke again, louder this time. "The drum has spoken," one said. "We must stop." But it was too late, because the second sound came, not from the shrine, from the forest itself. A reply. No one could later agree on what they saw. Some said it was shadows shaped like people but wrong in their proportions. Others claimed it was the forest itself bending and walking. What all agreed on was this: it did not rush. It approached, slowly, patiently, like something that knew there was nowhere left to run. Faces appeared in the mist, faces that looked almost human, except for the eyes. Eyes that reflected torchlight like wet stone. And as they stepped closer, the air filled with a sound that was not quite a voice. A low, rhythmic breathing, in time with the drumbeat that still echoed faintly in the earth. People screamed. They ran. They tripped over one another, over baskets, over drums that moments ago had been instruments of joy. Huts were slammed shut, doors barred, prayers shouted to ancestors who did not answer. But the rule had been broken. The drum had spoken, and the village had laughed. By morning, a candle was quiet. Too quiet. Smoke still rose from dying fires, but there was no movement, no greetings, no children's voices. When the elders emerged from hiding, they found footprints in the red earth, not leading away from the village, leading into it, and then stopping. Homes stood open and empty, food untouched, drums silent. Nearly a third of the village was gone. Not dead, not injured, gone. No blood, no struggle, just absence. The elders returned to the shrine. The drum looked unchanged, old, cracked, silent, but the ground around it was freshly disturbed, as if something had knelt there during the night. No one laughed again. No one questioned the rule. And when, many years later, the drum spoke once more, the village fell silent, because they remembered, or at least they remembered enough. They say a candle still exists, smaller now, quieter. They say if you visit and ask about the drum, no one will answer you. But if you stay long enough, if you listen closely on certain nights, you might hear a single, deep beat traveling through the ground. And if you do not laugh, do not speak, do not test what listens from the forest, because some rules were never meant to be questioned, and some warnings are only given once. If this story unsettled you, it was meant to. Subscribe to The Last Drum for more ancestral warnings, forgotten rules, and folk tales where every choice carries a price. Listen carefully. Some drums still speak.